Hey, Joe. You might want to. Okay, let's see what happens. All set.
Okay, so we are going to get started on the fiscal year 24 budget presentation. I know the thing that you're most interested right now is in the numbers. But as I tell you every year, I'm an educator, so I like to give you the story and the background information that go with the numbers, because it's the story that really tells the numbers, tells the story about the numbers. So, oops. It was working when we practiced it. Hold on.
Hang on a second.
Okay, so as you know, on March 7th, we presented a budget to the school committee, a draft budget. After we presented the budget, some members of the FinCom asked me to make a few changes to the budget. So that's the budget that you have in front of you right now. We have to do a public budget hearing, which was today. Thank you for being accommodating due to lovely storm that we had yesterday. And then on March 28th, the school committee is going to vote on the actual budget that is going to go forward for the town meetings in May. And so in order to tell you where we get our numbers, what we're focusing on, I like to always focus on the educational initiatives that are going on in the district, so that when people talk to you, you know what's going on and what we're really focusing on as a school district. Our big initiative that we're doing is what we call the Science of Reading Initiative. If you watch any listen to any podcasts, or if you've been watching anything that's happening in education, we really shifted from a balanced literacy approach to this science of reading. And that's based on years and years of studies of how kids' brains learn to read. And if you're interested in it, there's a really good podcast out there. It's called Soul the Story. It's about what's been happening in education for the past 30 years in reading. A few years ago, when I came here, didn't really love what was happening, but they always say in your first year as a superintendent, you don't touch anything because, you know, unless it's harming kids, and they were in the second year of a reading initiative. Well, we worked on our math initiative, and now we are finally working on our Science of Reading initiative, and we just did our mid-year data, and our goal is to be getting 85% of our kids reading at grade level at the end of every grade. Again, this is only year 2, but next year will be year 3 of that implementation. We'll also be going into our year 2 of the Science of Reading in grades 7 through 12. And we're also going to be looking for a new curriculum for grades 7 through 12. We call it data-informed teaching practices. No longer can teachers just say, I know the kids in my class. I know what your child needs. We now do what we call benchmark data, and we do tests mid-year, and we look to see where our students are at. We look at what they need for small group instruction, and then we give them its targeted instruction at what they need. And that goes right into the MTSS, the multi-tiered system of support. Teachers do small groups in the classroom. It's not necessarily somebody new coming into the classroom to pull a small group. The teachers know exactly where their kids are, and they're working with them, making sure that they are making the advances that they need, but also not keeping them in there too long so that we can get them moving. The other thing that we're working on is building in-district special education programs. I know you've heard a lot in the past 3 years about the effects of COVID on the social, emotional health of our children. Southwick, Granville, and Tallinn, we're not spared that. We have a lot of children who are coming to us with a lot more social, emotional issues. And so we have created some in-district special education programs that I will get into in a few slides. Beautiful thing about in-district special education programs are the children get to stay in the community that they live in. They get to form friendships. The other thing is we don't have to send our children out of district. The bad news is it does come at a cost, an additional cost, but there is savings found because we're not sending the children out of district. Again, we always look at our foundation enrollment over time. I know that this is a big one that people look at. In FY13, Our foundation enrollment was 1,791, and FY24, our foundation enrollment is based on 1,281 kids. Foundation enrollment is not actual enrollment. Foundation enrollment are the number of children who live in Southwick, Holland, and Granville, who either go to one of our schools or an out-of-district vocational school or an out-of-district school choice program. So that just includes a number of kids, not necessarily in our schools, but our enrollment is higher, but the number of students that live in Southwick, Holland, and Granville. And that's what the foundation in the Chapter 78 is based on. So I also like to give you a 3-year look. So in FY22 to FY24, Southwick has lost 33 students, Holland has lost 4 students, and Granville has lost 2 students. That's the net loss by each town over the past 2 years. Now I'm getting into the bulk part of the presentation. And this is what I really want to talk to you about tonight, because we have been seeing a trend of a lot of our students going to not just out-of-district vocational tuitions, but also attending CTEC. I looked at a trend because when I was looking at what it was going to cost this year to send our students out of district for vocational tuition, it was exorbitant. So last year we had 36 kids go out of district. This year we're predicted at 44. Applications don't need to be to me till April 1st. So this is my best guess based on the information that I have received from the regional school. So right now we have 44 students who either attend Westfield Technical Academy or Smith Vocational. If you look right here, my green dot. So right there, the gray is Southwick. So you could see back in FY19, there was 20, then there was 25, 13, 11, 16, and now we're back up to 21. You can see Holland has pretty much stayed 3, 2, 2, 1, 2. They really are only at 1 right now, but there's a potential for another one. And Granville has dramatically gone up from 5, 5, 7, 12, 19 to 21. So we cannot deny our children out of district vocational tuition. If a child says, I want to go to a vocational school, it is on the responsibility of the school district to pay for it. We can't say no. What we can say no to is if a student wants to attend a program that is offered at our collaborative, we say you have to go to our collaborative program. You can't choose to go out of district. So if you look at these 44 kids for next year, most of them are going into aviation, electrical. At Smith, a lot of it is animal science. There's web and programming that our students are leaving for, and there's plumbing. I would say those are the main 5 that our children are leaving us for. This comes at a significant cost because each one of these kids costs about $20,000 to send out of district. So if you do the math on that, that's a lot of money. So our out-of-district vocational costs, if I look at FY19 to where we are now in FY24, we are now at, and this is just out-of-district vocational costs, we are at $914,720. Last year, it was $661,000. That is a significant hit to the school district's budget. When we're talking about we're getting only about $500,000 in required local contributions, and we're taking about a $250,000 increase just to out-of-district vocational costs, it's a lot of our money to absorb. And these children are entitled to go. The other thing that is happening is we talked about a lot of the social emotional needs of our students. Last year, we budgeted $535,000 based on our students who were in our district at that time and what their out-of-district out-of-district special ed tuitions were going to cost. Over the course of the year, I put the blue next to it because we have now to date are at about $768,000 with additional students who now require an out-of-district placement that we did not have in an out-of-district placement when we were planning this budget last year. You didn't ask what's causing that. What's causing that is we've been able to maintain some of our children in our in-district programs, but as they get older, hormones happen, they start changing, and we can no longer meet their needs. We also get children who move into our district who we've tried to maintain, and their behaviors escalate to a point where we can no longer maintain them in the building for their safety and for the safety of the other children around them. Next year, as I mentioned at the roundtable, out-of-district costs are going up about 14%. So next year, we are looking at $891,000 in special education out-of-district costs. You do the math between the special ed and the vocational, those increases right there eat up basically the full required local contribution increase that we're getting from the 3 towns. I also told you that we have created 3 in-district programs. So we created a social emotional program at Powder Mill this year. And if we had to send these students out of district, it would cost us about $189,000. So but it does cost us $104,000 to run the program, but we're actually saving $85,000 by keeping the students here. The social emotional program at Woodland, it costs us $150,000 to run the program, but if we had to send these students out, it would cost us $200,000. And we have a program for children with autism at Woodland School. That is a huge savings for us, and it saves us $301,000 a year by keeping these children in our school district. So a lot of these programs that we developed, these teachers are in those ESSER funds that you asked me about earlier, because they were new programs, because we were dealing with a lot of social emotional issues that we hadn't had to deal with in the past to the severity. So those teachers are in the ESSER budget. Next year, we're going to have to talk about continued funding of these programs. The other thing I want to show you is the district net school spending profiles. So I went through, and if you click on that, you can go to this on the DESE website. Net school spending is the minimum amount of money that a school district has to pay to send their children. It's the minimum. It's your Chapter 70 foundation that the state said you have to pay, and it's your required local contributions. Southwick, this was the best data they had was from 2020. So if you go here and you look, 2020, Southwick is right here. We're at 103. That's where we are when it comes to net school spending, which means we've been bringing forward very conservative budgets year after year, using a lot of our school choice revolving money, using a lot of our E&D, and using our grant money to really offset the costs to the 3 towns. I can honestly tell you, I don't think that I could honestly be bringing you budgets that low anymore, due to the nature of the children and due to the programming that our children are requiring. I was just talking to somebody earlier and I said, do you realize if you take the number of students who go to our CTEC program and the number of students who go to out-of-district vocational tuition, it's about a quarter of our high school, about 100 kids. I mean, that's 100 of our students who are getting a vocational tuition. Times are shifting. It's not just all college prep anymore. More and more students are wanting to go and get trades and be, leave without going to college and getting college that it might not be what they're interested in. And so we have to realize that these is our community and these are our children and this is what they want to do. And we need to support them. So I got this question when I was presenting the budget to the school committee the other day. And they said, but everyone keeps saying Governor Healy's budget, it's got so much money in it. Where's all this money? Where is it? Why don't we have it? Where is it going? Well, I can tell you that over 71%, $418.8 million of all the new Chapter 70 money is going to 32 districts in the Commonwealth. It's 10%. It's getting 71% of the budget. 93% is going to 33% of the districts in the Commonwealth. Guess where we are? We're right there. 212 or 60% of all districts in the Commonwealth are left sharing only a total combined 7%, 41.5 million of all the new Chapter 71 money. We're hold harmless. Hold harmless means we are not going to see any significant increases, because any increase we would have got for our additional students going to a vocational program, additional students costing us more money. We won't see it because right now we're getting about $4 million in hold harmless. So why don't we get the state aid? Because in FY20, you look, we were getting about 4 million, sorry. We were getting about $4,392,000 in hold harmless. That was above. Then it went down a little bit to $4,176,000. Then there was the ARPA money in FY22, so it went up. Now you see it starting to go down and down. We used to use a lot of that hold harmless money to help offset the budget. But what the state is looking to do is the state is looking to do a balance more of required local contributions and state aid. So our hold harmless money that used to really help us with our budget is declining every year. Yet our fixed cost increases are going up at such a rate that doesn't compete or can't keep up with just our required local contributions. So if you look at our Chapter 70 increases, this is what we get every single year. That 38,430 out of all that SOA money that's out there, that is us getting $30 per student. That's what we get, an increase in Chapter 70. It's $30 per student. Last year in the final budget, they did increase it to $60 per student, which doesn't sound like a big difference, but it is a difference because you're in hold harmless. They gave us $60 last year per student. Then this year, they put the $30 on top of the $60. So when we presented the budget last year, we had $39,000. It was actually double that they gave us. It was actually double. But this year, it's $38,430. There's pushes out there for $60 per student. Yes. That's where we're going to get our money, is at the per pupil SOA amount of money. Where else can we get our money? Rural school aid. I was listening to the news this morning, and Russ, you mentioned this every year. We started including it in our budget now because it was like this one-time thing that they started a few years ago with rural school aid. And so we've been consistently getting about $110,000. So we now include it in the budget, because we were just getting it mid-year and we're like, this doesn't help us because we can't use it in our budget. So Governor Keeley did raise it from 5 million to 7 million. I don't know what that means for our school district, but there is a rural school delegation out there and they want it funded at about 30 million, not 8 million. They want it funded at 30 million because it's the rural schools with a declining enrollment that are having the most difficult time keeping their services up, and the cost of running a smaller district is more expensive than running a big district because kids aren't leaving in pockets of 20. They're leaving in one here, one here. We can't just cut a teacher. We can't cut a program. We can't just cut things. So it's very expensive to run a small school district. We don't have as many options to create as many programs in-house because we have a limited number of students and we have to create like programs for special education. Now we want to look at the budget. So if you look at the budget summary sheet, the government's proposed budget has an increase for Southwick for required local contribution for $423,866. Randall's increase is $75,012, and Tolland's increase is $25,545. So that continues to be a trend that we are seeing with required local contributions. As you remember, the year 2022, I showed you we had that big high number for the foundation aid because and they gave us a small amount for the required local contribution. That's where it kind of offset. But you can see the pattern starting in 2019, 136, 297, 351, 500. Now we're at 524. Required local contribution is going to keep going up every single year despite the declining enrollments. Because the money that we have in hold harmless is going down. So in order to meet the formula, this is what we're going to keep seeing this trend of required local contribution going up. When we look at the budget, what are some things that you should remember? Well, this budget does include 3 in-district special education programs, keeping about 10 kids in district. We're going to talk about a network upgrade in a minute when we get to capital. This is also the final year, as we were just talking about, of significant offset with our E&D funds and our school choice. So with the declining enrollments, can't offer as many school choice seats because we've gone down from about 6 or 7 teachers at a grade level to 5. And we promised our community that would prioritize in keeping class sizes small. So we don't have as many seats that we open. Well, we get about $645,000 a year in school choice coming in. What we keep putting in our budget every year is about 100, I think it's 1,055,000. We don't all have to know Common Core math to figure that out. If we're spending 1,055,000 and we're only taking in 643, that pot is declining. What do we pay with school choice revolving? Well, in the past, we paid for all of our special ed out of district tuitions, and we were able to pay for the majority, if not all, of our out of district vocational programs. Can't do that anymore. Can't do that. The math doesn't work anymore. We can't keep doing that. E&D is still healthy, so we did increase the E&D. We do have a significant increase to out of district vocational tuitions, an increase to special education out of district tuitions. And believe it or not, in the budget that I presented to you right now, we have 5.6 full-time teachers that were in last year's budget that are not in this year's budget. So although the budget is increasing, we have eliminated 5.6 FTE teachers in this budget compared to last year. So what are we doing with this ESSER money? If you look at the bottom chart, ESSER's $1.4 million this year that we're spending in ESSER funds. What are you doing? This is the last year of it. What are we doing? Well, we have 6 positions in our ESSER grant that are in the budget, $442,000. Next year, that money's gone. The majority of these positions, which is $442,000, are somehow going to have to be included in next year's budget if we want to continue with our special education programming here in town. We have the HVAC upgrade at Woodland School, which is going to be between $500,000 and $700,000 in the boiler room. And we are also using $300,000 of it to help offset the out of district special education programs. Again, that money's not going to be here next year. We can do it this year. That money's not going to be here next year. When we look at our capital cost requests, well, I'm going to have Garland Green, our new IT director, come and talk to you for a minute. But our network, I don't know if your kids have complained about it, but we've got some serious issues going on with our network. When I talked to Garland, when we hired him, you got to figure out what's going on with our network. It's not working. It keeps shutting down. I'm not a tech person. Please figure this out for me. So Garland has been working with multiple vendors to come in. He's going to actually be working with school committee member Jubb, this is his field. He wants to walk around the school and look at it too. But we have about $600,000 that we need to do to upgrade our network. $200,000 of it is coming out of ESSER 2 money this year. So $200,000 out of ESSER 2 is going to be the initial portion of the IT upgrade, but the remainder is going to be at a capital cost request. And our grounds utility truck is at its last leg. We are going to be asking for a $65,000 for the utility truck. That's what we're asking for in capital cost request, because we know the network upgrade is a significant hit to capital. But always, we want to thank you for what you do for our students. And I have everybody here to help answer your questions. I have Eric Wykander here. I have special education here. I have the building principals here. I have IT here, because they will be the ones who can best answer any specific questions you have regarding the network, or anything else that's happening in the district. Okay, all right, so it's opening up the floor. Now, thanks for us.
Eric, the HVAC at Woodland. Can that be put off for a year or two?
So the funding for that was specifically earmarked for COVID response. This is federal funding that is specifically set aside to deal with COVID-related issues. The second grade wing at the Power Mill or at the Woodland was the 1990 edition, was not touched by the building project. The MSBA didn't want to fund it. The town didn't want to fund it because it was too new, so nothing was done there. So we're dealing with 33 and 34-year-old mechanical systems that aren't providing adequate ventilation or heating to classrooms. So that money is being used to update that. It's not. I shouldn't say it shouldn't be read as an upgrade. It's a much needed repair, and it's to deal with this.
Reason why I asked the question is it's going to be designated green communities very shortly. Thank goodness the region is part of that. Collin and Granville are also green communities. We're going to be able to put in grants, competitive grants, up to $500,000. So if there was any way possible, that's why I asked.
Yeah, it's not something that we can put off. I think it would be fair to the taxpayer if we were to let this grant opportunity go. And I think it would be difficult for us to find a better use that doesn't have a fiscal cliff type issue, like funding a full-time employee that we would then have to reach in pocket and continue to fund out, because this is sort of a one-time expense. I think it's a really good best word that particular funds. Never fear though. Plenty of energy efficiency upgrades that we want to do with that green community money.
How many lights there? 308?
Well, yeah, that's just they're failing in the hallways. But,
I had to ask the question.
No, and not the neat thing, but the good thing about this is the ESSER funds don't come off the town's taxpayers. It's coming out of federal money. So it's a capital project that we would eventually have had to ask for under capital to incur the debt. This way, it is $500,000 to $700,000. We won't have to ask the townspeople to cover for capital.
Thank you.
Well,
And Jen, ESSER allows us to use that specifically for that purpose, right?
yes,
Yeah,
it falls
that's-
under air purification.
Yeah, that's the thing. We've got a limited timeline, and this upcoming budget year is the last year that we can use ESSER funds. So if we've got this project and it fits in there, because it won't accept all the projects, couldn't put the truck in ESSER, like it just doesn't fit the requirements. So using it in the last year that we've got is when, there's a $700,000 bill towns are not going to have to pay.
Absolutely, I agree.
And we tried to be responsible with the ESSER funds to do some of the capital projects, so it didn't have to go back onto the taxpayers of the town. We know it's taxpayer money at the federal level, but on a more local level, we didn't want to try to be responsible with it.
So Jen.
Yeah.
So you were saying that this budget eliminates 6 positions
Yes.
from last year, but then you have programs, and that's adding 6, or those 6 all to the 3 programs that you're gonna have?
So the teachers that were eliminated were positions that we had in the budget last year that through the inability to find somebody to cover that class, these positions were not filled. So instead of just frivolously just keeping them in the budget in hopes that we're going to find somebody, we cut them. Those other people that we're talking about, one of them is in the regular budget. 2 of them are in the ESER budget.
But you say you're adding 6
No,
or from ESER.
no, so
Okay.
those are people who were in ESER 2 that have been moved into ESER 3. So they were in the ESER 2 budget, now we just moved them into ESER 3. Yes, good catch, yes. Sorry, that's
No,
confusing.
okay. It is, but
Dave, they're in the total. They're in the total.
Yeah.
We reduced the FTEs from last year to the upcoming year by 5.5.
Mhm.
Those that are being paid out of ESER are still in the total number for the teachers.
Mhm.
So next year, they're still gonna be there. They're there this year. They were there last year. The funding for them
Yes.
were coming from different sources.
but net, we still have the same head count.
No, the head count is down
Okay,
5.5 from last year
Mhm.
for this year to next year.
okay.
So there's a savings.
Eliminating 5
Yes.
positions.
Yes,
And that's
Out
all,
of the budget.
out of the budget, out of
Not
the
a full
operating
reason, yeah.
budget, not the ESER budget.
oh. Okay, so you're not cutting the positions, those people are not gone.
They weren't here this year.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't fill some of these positions. As you saw all over the news, we're having a really difficult time finding people to cover some jobs. And I always, as the principals will tell you, you think you can limp along with what you have, because I'm always responsive to the taxpayer, and I have to tell you, Principal Trammell was really good this year. He's like, no, I'll be creative, I'll be creative, I'll be creative. And he was creative. And you can thank him for that, because most of the positions came from your building.
Yeah, it's a the 4 FTEs from the regional school. It was a combination, as Superintendent Willard said, of some positions that were posted that the applicants were not there. So they were vacated, and some were from the declining enrollment that we could use a 0.2 here or a 0.2 there, but to find a 1.0 in a certain department was not needed. So teachers were great in being creative and taking on some additional roles or some added responsibilities and providing the needs of the students. But we were able to, because of our enrollment and because of the lack of applications, able to decrease the number of staff by 4 from the current year to next year's staff.
We were also able to eliminate, Powder Mill had a bubble class. Well, all the grades had 5 teachers. 6th grade had 6 teachers. So we eliminated that sixth grade teacher as they're going to the regional school next year. And over the summer, we were looking at kindergarten. Big thing with me is low class size in the early foundational years. And so we did add a kindergarten teacher over the summer that actually wasn't in the budget, but that we felt we needed and could cover through costs. And so that position next year has been eliminated as well.
That because the enrollment isn't there?
Excuse me?
Is that because the enrollment isn't there that you know of?
Correct. And if they need to, then we'll figure out a way, like I did last year. We try and be creative, but you never know with kindergarten. Come in at 86, it can come in at 100. You'd never know.
Some of them enrolled the day before.
Exactly. Or 2 days after it starts. So we do our best.
So when you were talking about the enrollment numbers and that were like we lost 40 or 39 or something for a vote. And it wasn't clear to me, you had like $30 per person head count that's reimbursed from the state. But then you said the out of costs for vote was like a difference of 250,000 or something.
Mhm. So
And so I was trying to reconcile really.
right
what is
here.
the real cost? Yes.
So this year, the cost to send our kids out of district was budgeted at $661,048. That was put actually all last year in 110 in rural school aid and in school choice revolving. So if you look at last year's budget, if you look under FY23 out of district vocational tuitions, it'll say 0, even though it really did cost us $661,000.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Maybe I missed, when you say there's a cost, are you talking about the opportunity cost that we didn't get because we don't have them sitting in our seats, or do we have to take money out of our budget to follow that child?
Yes. So we have
It's a
to,
true cost.
yes, we have to find $914,000, 720 to pay Westfield Technical Academy and Smith Academy. CTEC does it a little bit differently. They take a 3-year average so that you're past 3 years, and they give you the average of that times the number of kids that you have going there. Plus, we get a credit from CTEC because they take kids in from other school districts that are part of the LPVAC. So I think we were about like at a 172,000 credit, but even CTEC went up about $100,000 this year. So
Superintendent Willard, I think it would be important for the district to send. For the district to send students to the collaborative, which we are part of, for one of 7 school communities that are part of the collaborative, it costs us roughly around $13,000 per student. For us to send a student to the Westfield vocational program, if CTEC doesn't have a program, like aviation is something that's unique to Westfield Tech, it costs the school district about $18,000 to $19,000 per child. If they go to Smith Vocational, which has unique programs that are really unique across the state, they have a couple of programs that no one else can replicate. It costs us close to $20,000 to $22,000, and that's not including transportation. So that number there that Superintendent Willard is pointing to are out of district costs to vocational programs. It's the tuitions of about $18,000 to $19,000 per student to Westfield Voc, and $20,000 to $22,000 per student to Smith Agricultural.
Thank you.
and they're real costs. And I am of the firm believer of we are a school district that should be providing kids the opportunities that they want to succeed in life. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying this is the reality. And this is what it is. Our kids are changing, our kids are evolving, and it's not so much AP and college prep. It's I want a skill that I can transfer as soon as I get out of school. And like we said, we have a lot of kids who attend Smith Vocational from Granville. And let me tell you, they're great programs that I can tell you, agricultural mechanics and animal science and all of that goes hand in hand with their families and what they do in Granville. So, you know, it's hard to deny a child something that is their passion.
Sure, it's
Yeah.
good for the kids. And
Yeah.
it's funny, it's kind of flipped, I think, over the generations, right? That used to be the cheap, you know, education, and
Yes.
college prep was the expensive one. But
Mhm.
it's kind of flipped.
The college and career readiness a few years ago has really started to make a shift in vocational tuition. One neat thing though, can I share, is that we were just approved for the Innovative Pathways program up at our regional school. So we are going to be offering 2 innovative pathways. Want to talk about that for a minute?
Sure. So the innovative pathways was something in 2017 that the state began to pilot. And what it does is it creates opportunities for students to take classes and then participate in an internship program with the surrounding business. There are five areas that school communities can partner with or promote, and we have looked at healthcare and information technology. And really why this was an easy opportunity for Southwood Granville College was because of our internship program that we already have at the school. We have a number of students, probably close to 40 to 45 students that participate in an internship program right now. Because of our community, the businesses in our communities are so supportive of this. So now we've developed some new courses, some new pathways, and partnered with the surrounding hospitals, the surrounding physical therapy businesses, while the computer as well for informational technology. So while these are not vocational programs, they do highlight a lot of the opportunities that the vocational programs may offer at CTEC or Westfield Tech Academy. So we hope that this provides an opportunity for students, not to dissuade them in any way from the vocational programs, as Superintendent Willard said, but to highlight and provide another opportunities to stay at Southwood Regional longer, to stay there for the full day and to participate in a partnership academically and with the internship in the surrounding community. So that's going to offer this starting this fall to the students. Students in 9th and 10th grade can begin beginning of the program. We got a $25,000 grant to support the program and the resources and the expansion of it as well. So we hope to find opportunities for our students that will help our students, but help the budget as well moving forward.
Here we were talking about adding, have some of the courses from Smith.
So yes, they looked at it. What I did was I had them do a study to see what programs our kids are leaving us for. When they did that, Southwick, Tyler, and Granville is very much an outlier. Most of the other school districts don't even send their kids to Smith Voc. We're an agricultural community. And they just said at the time they could not replicate any of those programs. The other thing is with like electrical, I was really trying to push electrical and plumbing, and they said it's too expensive for something to start. We are going to continue to keep looking for additional programs at CTEC, but as of right now, they're going through a transition as well. Their leader just he's retiring at the end of this year. But yes, I did actually I do have that information. We did talk about it at a meeting.
We actually looked at replicating some of those programs at the school, knowing that CTEC was not in position to offer an electrical program or a graphics program. Myself and the interim principal, Ms. Shorter, went up to Smith Vocational to look at how we could maybe bring some of these CTEC programs into Southwick Regional School. And it is a process that in our location to where we are with CTEC and our location where we are with Westfield Tech Academy, we are not in position as a school district to offer a number of programs. And we were pushed to really promote our innovative pathways programs we started to do. So we did look into this to see how we could do something here ourselves. And really what we need to do is to Superintendent Willard will continue to work with CTEC and expanding the programs. But as far as something on campus here, it's not something that we can.
So you found that there was some non-compete issues.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's
Even if we wanted to, we couldn't, because some of these programs, there's a certain mileage radius that they're sort of protected when they create it.
we can't
that-
start a
that we're inside
program.
that radius.
Yeah,
Right.
we can't start certain programs if there's if there's a school district within 10 miles of us that's offering it.
Right.
Some of these
Smart.
fields do not want it saturated with many ways coming into it is one of the things. So there were some nuances that really opened our eyes. We went into it thinking that we have some resources, we have maybe some funds, we have some people and spaces that would be very committed to doing it, but there's some bylaws that don't allow school districts to just bring in certain vocational programs.
It is
Yes,
interesting. It really is when you start to like look at these things.
You had a network person that was gonna,
Oh, Garland, don't ask me to explain. I can just tell you it doesn't work, so. That's all I got for you.
I was really curious,
Yes, sir.
what's the lion's share of that 450? Is that hardware switch?
Yeah, well, let's break it down. There's really three particular areas that we need to take a look at. I'm going to talk about the four main areas. That's switching that you're talking about. That's the physical infrastructure that you're dealing with and everything, switching, network, core switches, routers, firewalls, things of that nature. Then I'm going to use the other part of it. I'll call it your the Wi-Fi portion of it. And the Wi-Fi portion of it is there's actual radios in every room. You'll see one if you look over there. Just if you look on the thing, you'll see a little thing hanging down off the wall. It's called an access point. It's really a radio that sends wireless Wi-Fi, wireless fidelity radio signals out. As it turns out, about 80% of those devices that we currently have in here were of a particular kind of technology. The brand name of the company no longer exists. It was bought up by a company called Fortinet. Fortinet purchased that company, and then what they ended up doing is they assumed that technology and said, we will support that technology for you. They run out of that support, runs out on the 30th of December of this year, 2023. In fact, I cannot actually upgrade these beyond that point. And in fact, we have these starting to fail right now. I can even get one on eBay. I've been looking to try to buy these things, right? So there's simply, these are about 10, 12 years old on some of these devices. And they simply are old and you can't get them to replace it. The last part we're going to talk about, there's going to be some physical infrastructure, some cabling, some wiring, and things like that. Now, the core part that I'm talking about, the switches, our core switch, is actually 20 years old. Okay, it was put in 20 years ago. And it was put in at a time when we had labs. Regularly, you'd go to a lab and you'd put it in. But over COVID and the work that we've done, we've added about 600 new devices. That's pretty significant strain on the network. And as you know, like anything else, as the technology gets older, I mean newer, it allows for a faster and quicker kind of ability to consume faster. As the computer gets, remember the old days, if you have 64 big hard drive, I mean, wow, who needs more than that, right? So we're at that point now where we have these brand new devices who have the capacity to consume huge sums of data and send it back and forth and be quicker. And the network that was built at a point in time when the actual technology that we have in place didn't exist. So we're taxing that network. So we have what's called a wireless controller. That's a device that goes in there and manages every time something connects, we know where it's at or they move across. It's old, it's long in the tooth. We pushed it. Now here's the best part about it. You got all you got out of that stuff, right? You got the maximum you can out of that, and that's a value proposition. So as we look at the new technologies that are out there, we want to find out what technologies have lasted that distance and we get the most out of it. The thing that's also important to remember too, that is Joe and his team are thinking about putting together this new program, particularly the technology side. We're going to need to have a network that can grow with that as well. So we need to think about hyperlinking ourselves forward to present ourselves in a position where we can grow with the needs. And that's really going to start with the network. And like I said, we've gotten a lot out of this one. We should be happy with it. But we're struggling. We're struggling,
Are all three campuses connected to the same core?
Yes. Yes. All the data at some point in time goes through that core switch at some juncture. Yeah. And we have fiber connecting the buildings. Every building is connected through fiber. And so there's some stuff. It's a good network. It's a complicated network, but it's old. And it's time to be replaced.
In one portion, said the 220,000 portion is being covered under ESER
Yes.
2. So
That was
portion,
from last year, right?
yeah, we're gonna get it done this, yeah,
That was in last year's budget.
yes,
not in-
yes.
So all 450 is this year and then only maintenance beyond, there's no more.
Well,
Okay.
there'll be
items.
some continuing things like, keeping your warranty up and things like
Okay.
that. Yeah. As it stands now. One of the things that I want to work with Superintendent Willard on is as we get the network, we want to avoid something here. It's something that's a strategy that I want to put in place after we get it up and running the way we need to. You don't want to have to come back, after X numbers of years and ask for big chunks of money, right? So I'll be putting a plan in place and work with it. How can we stagger? We've kept some equipment that we still think maybe can work us and go there. So we'll talk about what's the right thing to go ahead and move forward. So we don't have to hit such a big, right? But it's like capital, you can only keep that around, if you eat your capital, eventually you're gonna pay for it. And we're at that point now where we need to really think about what it looks like. Good part about it is that technology is getting so quick and it can grow with us, right? There's some radios out there that are ready for a new kind of technology that's not even in the classroom yet.
Anybody have IT questions? Because
Hey, Carolyn, I have a couple, say, how many devices?
Whole device.
So I'm talking laptops,
Yeah,
are you allowing phones?
Yeah.
Like cameras?
Yeah.
What's your speed?
you're talking about to the bone? You got 2 gigs.
We have coming in 1 gig. what's-
2.
2 gig coming in, share, what's the free? What's, do you have the breakdown of each, like what? So how many of those are off LAN or how many?
Well, the majority of our use is Wi-Fi. Absolutely. Yeah.
We have the opportunity to plug in.
Yes.
Network instead of using Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Eliminate the cameras off this network and.
Well, the cameras are on a separate network, right? They don't, those particular cameras aren't working on this particular project. The only thing that we actually add some to that particular thing, sensor conversation. that particular network is a wired network, and it's separate from what I'm talking about. And that's a separate network, that's not gonna touch that. Total numbers. I think at one particular time I saw online about 1,000 total, like the investment being sent out. That's, you know, you figure, like my watch just went off, right, and I just got a piece, this has got to be accounted for. Got my cell phone, that's got to be accounted for, get the laptop's got to be accounted for. You know, when you think about total, you just think in terms of laptops, you think, well, we only have 1,300 and some numbers in total. You think that was it, that's not true. Because you have the IoT, the Internet of Things. It also have to be accounted.
What about voice over IP?
My boss, yeah, it's all voice,
It's also about spots and Centrex and eliminating that bandwidth drop.
I think it would probably be cheaper for us.
I-
We just not, hold on. I'm not saying it'd be cheaper for us to go old school, right? Because if I have to go, you have to go.
Okay, there's technology in place that you can go voice over or even file tone.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going way so far with that. Yeah, all of our points are going that.
you'll, subscribe to the carrier, there's different technologies out there.
I had,
Eliminate that bandwidth.
I think that the bandwidth of the wire that you're talking about is not a problem. Like, it's not our challenge. The actual physical phone plugged in because of the hardwire. That's not a problem. A problem is with the wireless. Right, we're consuming huge amounts of wireless bandwidth on radios that were built 10 years ago. Right, so all the new computers that are coming in at a higher bandwidth than consume on radios that were built at the time that didn't know that existed. So now we're putting pressure on that network.
So
Yeah.
not even like range extender. I'm talking just,
So these particular, but I can't even get new ones. I can extend them, but they're dying. You know what I mean?
they're all like, if you did do the speed right now, but a speed check. Yeah, not a lot.
right now. 250 maybe? Megs?
Shared amongst a lot of devices, that's not bad.
Yeah, but you said right now. You know, during the school year, and we also have.
So would you do that?
We have a QoS as well, let's keep in mind, we have quality service, but we have to level our bandwidth, so we don't want to something that consume huge sums of bandwidth. You know what I mean, so we say, so for example, SRS does get into a lot of bandwidth. And of course, we prioritize voice traffic and then you prioritize those back to get one, right? So why you should take a look at a bandwidth speed in that particular sense? That's a portion of it, that's a single packet going on, that's a single packet coming back down, but when you deal with TCP IP packets that are coming in and out, especially heavier stuff, like bigger video and audio consumption, and that's another piece of it too.
Also,
We're all, our video is part of our classroom. All right, that's. Yeah, I mean, this is part of, this is what happens, this is the rich media education we have to do. Yeah, so.
I'll say it for you, I don't want.
Say it, are we good?
I got one last
Yes, sir.
question.
Yes, sir.
I'm a wise ass. I've been behaving tonight, so. It's still in me a little bit. I am better
Okay.
than I used to be. Are we locking up the kids' phones? Will that help with this whole headache?
Look,
Yeah.
That's all. I got no from the rest of them. You can sit
I
down.
think, I do want to address that because there's some people out there that are probably saying, hey, yeah, right on, man. Yeah, there's two things that we have to understand. If you turn into for STG, then we're playing whack-a-mole against people. And these kids also have phones that can act as hotspots.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and so that means that now they're off our network if we become too public. So it is a balance between providing the right education and the opportunity. I know that I use my phone for everything, and so do the kids. When we have children who are using their phones and they're comfortable with that personal devices, we know that they are. That means that this district gets free cameras and audio recorders that we don't have to provide. Right, so
It's one way of looking at it.
yeah, so if we want to come in and have children create rich media content, which we do, right? Because that's demonstrating learning in different ways than what maybe we had that opportunity to do. And we're incorporating that we want to encourage the use of that because that shows learning in ways in which you didn't have before.
And when they're done with you, they come to me to work and they suck because they're on their phones. That's a discussion for another day.
I've got kids. I've got kids.
It's like that you. Okay.
All right.
Talk about that later. Let's educate everybody on E and D and what's the number?
Oh, E and D, we're at 1 Right here, hold on.
Some of my folks are new, so I
Oh.
don't understand that, so.
So E and D, I moved up to on the, I'm sorry, we can go to that assessment. We can pull it. I bumped it up this year to
What does it stand
Excess-
for, Jen?
excess and deficiency. So what excess and deficiency is, think of it as our, the school district's free cash. So we are allowed to keep up to 5% of our operating budget in an excess and deficiency. So we were at about 1.3 million last year. We were right at the top of where we could be. So this year under excess E and D, restricted surplus E and D, last year we were at 875,000. I did increase it this year. I tried to I put it at 915,000. Because what I did was I put an additional 40,000 there. And then under transportation, I took $60,000 from the MECO grant and deducted it there so that I was able to take $100,000 off again to try and lower the discretionary line item.
So the real number, this is coming from Mr. Steiner.
Okay, what does he want to know?
What's the certified number? What do we have?
Oh, I can tell you, I have it right here.
He wants to know what the discretionary number is, right?
He wants to know what the certified number is.
For E and D.
Oh, okay.
It's like 1 point.
There's a test for me tomorrow morning.
Here it is. Total certified unencumbered excess and deficiency, 1.323608.
0.62, no.
There you go.
Thank you.
And we're using 915,000 of that to offset this year's budget.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What is our reimbursement for transportation?
That's another good question. So in the governor's budget, she has put in hopefully 90%. Now, when we get the cherry sheet from the state, that is the number that we are supposed to include, that you will see on your line item in there. So the cherry sheet for regional school transportation for the governor's budget was $728,870. I upped it to about $800,000 because I'm anticipating that while it goes through the other 3 houses, it usually goes up a little bit over the course. So I didn't put in the governor's budget. I put it, they wanted us to put in 728. I did put in $800,000.
But your expenditures is draft recall is 1.8, almost 1.9. And then you have just $800,000 reimbursement. That's not 90%.
No, but it can only be for, so that's total budget. That's special ed, that's VECO, that's vocational. It's
Only certain.
right. So we can only get reimbursed for children who live 1.5 miles away from the school. And so it's all part of the end of the year report. It's called Schedule 7, and they do a whole mathematical formula. And that's how they figure out and anticipate what we are going to get in regional transportation reimbursement. But I can tell you, regular ed I can tell you right now, Karen, hold on. Regular ed transportation this year is just regular ed transportation is 1,002,000. 1,002,000. MECO is 200,434. Vocational tuition is vocational transportation is 66,811. Special ed is 544,852. But it also this year includes, we have to pay for monitors, and we had to include 2 monitors at $65,000. And it doesn't include field trips, and it doesn't include athletics. So
state reimbursement?
athletics?
No, any of the, say, the vocational or any of that transportation?
I don't know. I'd have to find out. I didn't do the Schedule 7 last year. Steve and Michelle did it. But I don't know. I don't gather. I
You
can't.
can email me that.
Okay, I'll email Joe. You just call me Joe.
If they live outside of the 1.5 miles
Right.
from
Right,
even this school to be.
Right.
considered, they should
Yeah.
be reimbursed. for
Yeah.
that.
you know, Joe, actually, Joe's gonna be answering your question, so, to the students, I'm done being business manager after today. So the students who go to the vocational
Yes.
schools, are they part of the reimbursement that we get from the state?
I can find out, but I know that 635 of our students is the number that we get reimbursed for.
You go.
And they have this thing down, like I asked Jen last week.
Yeah.
I said, well, do we actually have this from the school to the house? Well, my question was school to the house or school to the bus stop? Because I was worried, I'm like, wait a minute, let's make sure we're going to the house, because like my road, all the kids from the subdivision come out to the road. But when we checked a couple people on Woodland and it's to their house. So I think we're getting as much reimbursement as we can.
We actually have to provide them, I was shocked with, it is the student's name with the exact mileage, like 1.32, 1.41. It's crazy how specific that they have to do it in order to apply for the reimbursement. I was shocked, actually.
Somebody goes on Google Maps and
I don't even know.
Well, so it's a report that so part of our end of the year audit. There is a schedule that is all around transportation, and so we need to provide them with all the students, their addresses, and then a separate list of students that are within that 0.1 to 1.5 miles away. And that's not part of the reimbursement. There's a special ed transportation, there is the out of district cost transportation that we have to provide as well. But I know just from, we're in the process of the audit, FY22 audit right now. And it was 635 students that we are eligible for the reimbursement.
Ready for a comment?
Only if it's a good one.
Uh,
Good positive.
At the Mass Municipal Association convention in January, in Boston, we had an informal meeting of the Selectmen's Association, people from Western Massachusetts, because we were kind of sick and tired of getting the short end of the stick. Referring back to your 67% of all districts in the Commonwealth are only getting 7% of the new money. Do the school committees association band together, or thinking about banding together? Because we're hoping, we're meeting April 1st in Polio to continue this, to band as many people together in Western Massachusetts, to have a stronger voice in Boston. I don't know if it's going to be successful, but we're going to try.
I mean, that's certainly something that we can bring up in our region. I don't think MASC is a group, because you're going to get obviously the people in Boston and Springfield that are getting the lion's share of that money. They're going to go, no,
Right.
we don't want to meet at this. But I mean, we do have our region out here is the valley. So there's certainly all of us out here probably would be able to fall into that. And whether MASC, I don't know, we're going to have Liz from MASC with us in a week or so, and ask her.
So one thing I can tell you is that MASC and Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents
Yeah.
that I'm a member of, they are really pushing the rural school delegation, which is the full funding of the rural school aid. That the SOA is what is taking care of all of the urban communities. It is our rural school districts that are being forgotten and left behind. And if we can advocate, I've already spoken with Nick Voldiga. I spoke to him on the phone the other day. I actually gave him those numbers as well, those percentages. So when he's representing us, he's got those numbers to talk about. But we really got to be pushing regional transportation, the per pupil child at least funded at 60. I know there's somebody out there who's pushing it for 100. That's great. And then we really need to push the rural school delegation. That is where we're going to get money from the state. Those are the only three places. I know we will get additional money in circuit breaker next year due to our out of district costs. However, it doesn't help us this year. Circuit breaker is always a year later. So our special ed, as we all know, we talked about, went up 14%. Next year, we'll have more money in circuit breaker to help offset it. Like, we increased it from last year, our circuit breaker was at 85,000, and this year we were able to go to 110,000 to help offset special ed. And again, all of our circuit breaker, all of our school choice revolving, and all of our rural school aid, all that money down there on the bottom, the 1 million, the 110 and the 110, that's all of it. Every cent of it at some point is going towards either special ed out of district or vocational tuition. That's all that money is being used for. It's not in the budget anywhere.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I understand pressure that the school committees on the regional school committees on. And I think you understand the pressure that we're under as a community, especially Southwick. I mean, we looked at the statistic the other night. 33% of the town of Southwick are now classed as seniors. So that's the reason why we had to go to paramedic. One of the reasons why we should go to paramedic level. And that's a tremendous cost.
Right.
And it's only going to increase. Same with our police department, same with our full-time firefighters. We're under a lot of pressure. And when we see figures like this, we're going to do a balancing act. Because we're still have the debt exclusion paying off the school buildings.
Yes.
Which belong to the town of South, at least for the region. So it's a concern. You know, because we have to be very concerned for the taxpayers. And I know people are very still. But you have a job to educate kids, and that's a very important. But we have a job to take care of the whole community.
So if you do look at it, the only amount of the discretionary line item that we actually did in this year's budget is it would be an additional 190 for Southwick, an additional 6,000 for Tolland, and 27,000 for Granville. That would be the discretionary offset to the budget that we put in there. We're using a lot of our money, and again, we are gonna hit a fiscal cliff. I keep saying this. I mean, again, school choice, 1,055,000, and we're taking in 650,000. I don't know how many more years we can keep doing this.
Right.
Our excess and deficiency, we keep trying to keep at a high cost so we can continue to help offset it. I can't control the number of children who go out of district for vocation. I can't control the number of students who are being who need services outside of our school district. I just know it's our job that we have to pay for them and give them what they need. And I can't keep cutting teachers and affecting all the children who remain here to help pay for a lot of these out of district costs. So we are trying to do a balancing act. We do look at every line item. We do look at every grade level. Just don't keep putting people in because they were there before. We move things around. Yeah, our network is a huge cost. It is. But the only other good thing is, if you do look at it, the debt service this year, because we have been, another thing I should bring up too, hold on before we leave, is the debt service went from 465,000 down to $398,000. So there was a $67,000 because we keep borrowing less. However, this is the last year, if you look up at the LPVEC fleet lease payments, the $70,000 up there under revenues, this is our last year of getting the revenues from that. So we're doing the best we can. We're as transparent as we possibly can be.
I'm not being critical. I am not being critical. I
hear
appreciate
you.
the hard work. I'm just frustrated with Boston. And just frustrated with Boston.
Yes.
Because it's there's no equity.
No.
Russ, what year? I can't remember.
14 in that.
14 is in.
14, okay, so. in that time, we have a copy of that. You know, job, see if there was any sort of. Is there any money budgeted for the network then? So 2014, we didn't do any upgrades to the network, like even the Wi-Fi here. We used the old stuff and floated it.
I think it was Gene Thoreau.
Yeah, Gene Crow.
and Volunteers that ran the wires in all the schools, correct?
Mhm.
It was people from the National Guard, things like that, Air Guard, that came down and
So
did
it's
it.
all volunteer.
All volunteers.
The national.
There was some in it. I remember there was some parts of it that were done, but some of this stuff was not. From what I remember.
And just to let you know, for that interesting graph that she put up there, how much does this district sort of charge the towns above and beyond next, like on the net school spending side? Even the discretionary, the $250,000 on the budget, it's only 0.8 of a point above. So we're at 1.08. So we're still gonna be on that graph of every district in the state as far left as you can get with what the discretionary amount is, even with all these things that are going on. So it's still, it's not like we were worried, like last week was a lot higher. We moved things around to try to make this work.
Does that 450 get in truck capitalized over several years, 5 years?
5 years.
So it's not really the hit
No.
this year.
And that actually was Chairman Stevenson's idea, to eliminate the discretionary was much higher. And he said, you know, I thought it was a great idea. He's like, but if we do the capital costs, it spreads it out over 5 years and we won't need this much money next year in capital. So, hey, I did $200,000 last year and the year before, $200,000. Yeah, because
And don't say that. $460,000 upgrade on the network. How about that?
No, it's gross.
There you go.
One's an observation. 450. The fuse for this budget was lit 5 years ago with SOA, right? We talked about it in MMA. We talked about it at a couple of conferences since then. They basically took the pie. Yeah, education spending goes up as a function of the increased budget every year, but they cut that pie and they absolutely, pardon my expression, screwed everybody that's not in those 8 or 10 big cities.
Correct.
And it was clear as day before it even happened that the Lowells and Boston, they were excited as heck about this. We knew this.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be the environment we're gonna have to live under. I don't have the solution, but I echo what Russ said. I mean, we're gonna start pricing people out of their homes. We're gonna have to figure out a way to do this. The other piece is on the tech piece. I commend you again for what you've done on the other piece with, instead of doing large capital projects every year where you've kind of been on a leasing program. It's probably something you should look at for this piece too, so that you're not taking a big bite in this year and then there'll be nothing for 3 or 4 years and then another big bite.
Right.
Spread it out and then you're constantly in the, you know, you'll be refreshing it. I mean, this Wi-Fi stuff is a great example. Probably, I don't know, 8 generations beyond what this was when it came in, and all your new equipment could use it and would take pressure off the network because it's that much more efficient, but now you can't because you got this. So maybe that's something to look at, and it will lower the capital requirement and spread it out over its 10-year life or 8-year life, 5-year life, and then in 5 you get used to the payment, right?
Right.
Which is exactly what they used to do with the bonding every year. Used to come in with $500,000
Every
of
year.
bonding every year, and as your old debt expired, you just borrowed more money. Well, the leasing is the same thing, just it moves to the other side of the budget. But that's probably a way to look at some of this other spending for network equipment is leasing is what it really comes down.
And you can lease network?
Yeah. Or you could do it at even, I mean, there's, this is not my area of expertise, I'm on a different side of the business, but everything today is as a service, if you will, right? You can, it's essentially a lease, right? So you're doing it with your laptops.
Yes,
and
we
your
are,
Chromebooks.
right.
Why wouldn't you lease the network?
I want to jump in here, if you're interested, right? This is one of the conversations, and I mentioned, I kind of hit upon that earlier. You don't want to go ahead and have to keep doing what you just described, right? So I want to let you know that I'm very much aware of what we're dealing with. The pressure to do with the monies that we have now and not put everything in the operating expenses and stuff. This budget that we're talking about now, the things that we're buying now, it has to do the way that we're doing it. And yet, what you're saying is absolutely true. And I will make this promise to you that I will look into that because what can we spread out over? You don't want to keep hitting huge amounts like that, right? And like, we know that. So I spoke to Superintendent Willard about that, where we're at this moment, we're kind of in a bit of a trick bag right now. We got to get done what we need to get done, but I completely agree with you because leasing is really the way to go. In a lot of ways, as long as it fits within your operating expense, and it's something that's way above my pay grade on how that impacts the district. Yes.
And, you know, kudos to the school committee for how they do it. You shove some of it or put some of it into grants. So that may not be appealing because if you have grant money that you need to spend, you need to buy it, right? But if it's operational stuff that you want to refresh.
Yes, that's really the way that everybody has gone, particularly for one particular reason. Cost wise, absolutely goes without saying. However, the technology is moving so quickly, right? And running your network as long as we've run it, you just way outstrip the capacity. And that really is a big thing. So if you can get in, if you can get in a good recycle, that's the way to go. Yeah, but you're right, 100%.
Trying to find your answer, Joe.
Well, no, just trying to find
Wonder.
like the capital. I'm just looking to see if I could find the capital repayment plan that Joe and I were working on the other day. Yeah, we really do try and break it up over the 5 years, and I've been very, very conscious because we had all this federal grant money to really not put a lot of these capital expenses on the taxpayers. But I know a lot of school districts use the money to give people bonuses, or they used it for just hiring lots and lots of additional teachers. We were very conscious on what we did with our ESSER funds, and we really made sure that we were going to use these funds. One, it was going to benefit the children and benefit the children in the long run. The HVAC projects is, I like this with it for Eric. I can't wait to get that done because it's been on like my brain for 1.5 years now. But again, that'll pay dividends for years to come. And as will upgrading our network because our kids are only going to be using more and more and more technology. Our assessments are all online. Our kids do all of their iReady tests or diagnostic tests. Everything is online. And it's like a traffic jam right now when all of our kids are trying to get on the MCAS at the same time. So we've got about 400 kids all trying to get through the door at the same time. And kids, this is the day of testing, and then the kids get frustrated because they can't get on. And, you know, and then we're calling technology to come and help us. And so for me, as a superintendent, when I look at the 2 projects that are the most important to me that I really think are going to benefit this district well past my time here, is really going to be the HVAC and really going to be the upgrade of the network. This technology, as we all know, is not going anywhere. Yeah, just that's Chat GPT. Who actually did my budget? I'm not like
No. What do you mean?
No. All right. Well,
Thank you.
that's it. Thank you. Thank you for coming, everybody. How do I get out of here?
Yes.